Headlines with Camilla, Tominey and Alison Phillips.
And we're starting with the story on every front page this morning. Yesterday, an unprecedented super injunction was lifted, which revealed that successive governments have spent years covering up a major data breach by the British military.
Yeah, the blunder put the lives of up to 100,000 Afghans at risk, and billions of pounds of taxpayers' money could now be spent on relocating them back here to the UK. It's an extraordinary story, this, Camilla, and just begs the question, how on earth could it happen?
Well, basically, a Royal Marine accidentally sent this list of names in 2022 to an Afghan, who then made it public by putting it on social media. At that time, there was a huge scramble because it did expose the names of Afghanis who had been helpful to the British forces while involved in that conflict. A great many Afghans had actually helped serve with the British Army against the Taliban, very bravely putting their own lives at risk and those of their families. Their names are then exposed. The MOD then has a giant scramble to try and protect them from any reprisals that could happen by the Taliban, who, of course, are murderous terrorists. Then what happens is that the press finds out about it, Telegraph, Times and others, then go and lobby the MOD to try and find out details of what has happened, not least because it's involved a huge expense of taxpayers' money in A, trying to cover up what had happened, but B, try to relocate the Afghans who have been compromised by their names being made public. The MOD responds by putting an injunction on the story, which means that it cannot be reported. This after former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace leaves office and Grant Shapps takes over, turns into a super injunction. We still haven't quite got to the bottom of how that happened because it needs to be imposed by a court, but was an application made by the MOD. Super injunction is a souped-up injunction. So an injunction is you can't report the contents of the story. A super injunction is you can't even talk to colleagues about knowing what the story is, let alone reporting it. So it's an extremely high level of top secrecy. The judge yesterday now lifted that super injunction, actually expressing a huge amount of concern as to why on earth the details of this were covered up. Yes, of course, we understand, both of us very well, not least Alison as a former newspaper editor, the importance of journalistic responsibility when it comes to issues of national security and keeping people safe. But the point is, the super injunction made it impossible to even know the contents of the MOD and other government departments' own failures in this. And if you listen to people like former Defence Minister Johnny Mercer, who was in charge of trying to resettle into the UK, those very soldiers, they're called the Triples, who were actually on the front line helping British troops, he's the one who is saying this was an absolute omni-shambles from every government department involved. We are now in this perversely odd situation that we are going to be letting in 24,000 Afghans, we think. But some of the people that actually helped the British troops in Afghanistan are still there. There's a complete lack of coordination as to who we're bringing in, who we haven't brought in. Johnny Mercer and others are still fighting for the rights of some people out there to be brought back. The whole thing is mired in controversy and confusion, and it's costing the taxpayer an extraordinary amount of money. I think it's been calculated that for every person being allowed back in, and bear in mind there are now huge security concerns, who are these people? Could they be linked to the Taliban? Could they be a risk to British people? 125 grand per person to bring these people back here.
And the Taliban have already come out and said they're hunting for these people as well, Alison. So that pressure mounts, as Camilla was saying, but how do you run the checks and security protocol with regards to getting them over here? Because how do we know that they aren't going to be part of some sort of scheme? I don't know.
Absolutely, and these people have been coming over, for quite some time. But that list has actually been in the public domain, as Camilla was saying. That was on social media for 3 years or so. So the Taliban has had plenty of time to find some of those people, should they have wished. But I think the question about the super injunction is very much about, was it there really to protect these people? I think it probably was in part, but was it also there to protect the reputation of the Ministry of Defence? And I think that's going to be the question.
I mean, typically we see what we are aware of with injunctions and super injunctions tend to be stories around celebrities trying to suppress details of some salacious encounter or something like that. Never something...
Well, I mean, that's the whole point. We don't know, because the whole point about super injunction is you don't know, or you can't write about the fact there's even an injunction.
Well, you might have it... Also, when it comes to military matters, you'd have something called a D notice. So, say, for instance, when Prince Harry served out on the front line. There was a D notice which prevented, and actually a gentleman's or gentlewomen's agreement between the press and the palace that we wouldn't report on what he was doing in Camp Bastion until he had come back home. OK, perfectly cogent idea, because we don't want to expose a prince of the realm and, by the way, his comrades to danger. it's interesting that it wasn't a D notice because it's a military thing in order to protect the identities of those on the list, and it becomes a super injunction that actually prevents any meaningful journalistic scrutiny at all. Although, of course, journalists being journalists, you know, for the last 2 years, colleagues like my colleague Gareth Caulfield and others on different newspapers have been working on this in a bid to get to the moment where the judge lifts the super injunction, and then, well, I'm sorry, it's all there and plain for everyone to see, because, by the way, reporters will spend 2 years working on something to make sure that the public does know what has been covered up.
And I think people are also kind of interested about who was the person who accidentally sent a list of all these people who put their lives at risk, and what's been the consequences, because as we understand it, that person is still in a job.
Yeah, I mean, John Healey, the Defence Secretary, has said this is, quotes, a serious departmental error and there was a strict breach of protocols. However, our understanding is that nobody has lost their job over this, which is kind of, I think, sort of symptomatic of the public's lack of faith now in the system. Where's the individual ministerial responsibility that we used to be used to in the 80s and 90s with, frankly, you know, secretaries of state having to resign over things like this? Where's the responsibility when it comes to the civil servants involved? Actually, I think it's probably unfair, and this is a Johnny Mercer point that he's made in a piece of The Telegraph this morning. It's unfair to just pinpoint this guy, this Royal Marine, who has done this, because actually what led up... A series of catastrophic events led up to the moment where this email was sent. And therefore there is vicarious responsibility that needs to be taken by the people running these organisations, not just one individual who has clearly pressed send at the wrong moment.
Let's move on to our second story. A 12-year-old girl has been causing a real furore. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has weighed in after a 12-year-old schoolgirl was sent away from Culture Day at her school due to her Union Jack dress being dubbed unacceptable. What has the school... I think the school's backtracking now, aren't they?
So the school has apologised. So Courtney Wright, well, it was Culture Day, which a lot of schools have these throughout the year, and then people can go in dressed or wearing flags, or taking flags of a culture that they identify with. She went in her Union Jack, sort of Jerry Halliwell-style dress, and was told, no, you can't wear that. And then she was pulled out of a lesson later in the day, and then her father had to come and fetch her. Apparently, other children that turned up with St George's flags or Welsh flags also had those flags taken off them. So the father obviously was furious, other people have been very angry, but the school has now apologised and said we're committed to learning from this experience and ensuring that every student feels recognised and supported when expressing pride in their heritage. So I think that's the important point, in that what was supposed to be a really good idea and really sort of inclusive idea has actually been counterproductive, in that this girl, Courtney, felt that her identity wasn't recognised. And I think that's a real shame, because things like this can be really, really powerful. We see them in schools and they're great, but everyone's got to see recognised, haven't they?
Apparently she was told the dress was unacceptable.
Well, I initially saw it and thought, well, was it a miniskirt like Jerry Halliwell? And then I thought, well, maybe no, it's to the knee. I mean, she looks perfectly respectable.
She's a straight-A student, apparently.
But also, you know, diversity, inclusion and equality doesn't work if it doesn't include English, British, Welsh, Scottish, Irish. I mean, what? Because apparently people with Welsh flags were turned away. Well, why? We shouldn't be afraid of where we come from. Lots of people might wanted to go to that in an England shirt.
I do think, though,
what's wrong with that?
I do think, though, that you get these events at lots of schools, and this is the only time that I have heard of something like this happening. And I do just wonder if it was a terrible mistake on behalf of one or two teachers, because the overall view from the school seems to be this shouldn't have happened. It won't be happening again.
But there has been a stigmatisation of the St George's flag, particularly because it was once associated with the far right. My argument has always been that you want to have non-far right people flying the flag, and then it washes out all of those people. It's a celebration of who we are.
A spokesperson for the school said, we deeply regret the distress this has caused and offer our sincere and unreserved apologies. We are committed to learning from this experience and ensuring that every student feels recognised and supported when expressing pride in their heritage.
One of the things I really like...
a Great Britain Day next term.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? But also, I love the fact that Courtney wrote a speech about her pride and what she loves, and that's now being shared everywhere.
Right.
So after what was an initial issue by the school, more people are hearing about her pride in her heritage and all those wonderful things. So Courtney is flying the flag, not just wearing it. How about swearing? Let's talk swearing. Camilla, how do you preserve tranquility in your workplace?
I think Alison can vouch that a newsroom isn't the best place to assess tranquility and mild language. We do tend to F and blind a bit in journalism.
Can be done.
And
Can be done.
I personally am rather potty mouth when off air. So this is a tricky one for me, because if I was fined by Thanet Council for swearing...
A significant amount as well, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, people could face a £100 fine, reduced to 60 if paid within 2 weeks. It's a bit like parking in the wrong place.
Yeah, it is. You've got that. But they have rolled back on it. So this was a proposal. So they're not actually... Because they had people from the free speech organisations saying that you can't stop people from swearing, which you can't. However, I do think we have to look at it in the context of what they were trying to do was reduce antisocial behaviour. So it was other elements of antisocial behaviour: urinating, spitting, using laughing gas, drinking, and public humiliation, which I thought was like really... I mean, we all know what it's like. You know, you go to the beach or somewhere for the day and you've got sort of big groups of yobs who are making other people's lives deeply unpleasant. And they were trying to deal with that, but it hasn't quite worked.
They rolled back on it, but the authority is keen to revisit the measures in a meeting today. They are talking about looking at it again as a means of... And as you rightly say, they're trying to tackle antisocial behaviour, but the idea that a PCSO is going to be walking along the street and hears Camilla, in her ripe phrase, turn round to you and say something which suddenly slaps you down with a £100 fine.
I suppose that because the Free Speech Union is very concerned about these new kind of like banter policing laws and like people having conversations in pubs and offices, someone's listening in. That sounds to me to be extremely Orwellian, Big Brother-ish and quite disturbing. Having said that, I do agree with you. I mean, antisocial behaviour... We've all been in those situations where people are in groups shouting and hollering and it's intimidating. It's one thing saying the F word under your breath, quite another saying it at somebody else. That's probably where we draw the line.
And I think that's the bit. So the intention is to stop antisocial behaviour. It's just, unfortunately, that it appears that it's going to be an attack on free speech. So I'm sure there's other ways around it that you could just stop that kind of behaviour rather than just people...
Better education, maybe.
And just also,
why are people urinating and defecating in Thanet?
And just basically civility.
In public.
Just civility, so that when you go out, don't upset other people near you. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Otherwise, we'll send these ladies down.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
We're going to start with Molly May's sister, Zoe. Zoe Ray has made headlines after leaving her honeymoon in Bali, or holiday in Bali, just 2 days after arriving, claiming it wasn't quite what she'd expected from social media. This is what she had to say.
With high expectations, because we'd seen on social media everyone's having such a lovely time. If you took a picture of the coffee shop and zoomed out, you would see what the reality was. And I don't think the reality of Bali is shown much or at all, if I'm going to be completely honest. And I do think it is down to a lot of influencers.
Which she is.
Which I think
this is like the definition of first world problems, isn't it? My luxury holiday isn't quite as luxury as I expected. I mean, this is the thing. So she's gone to Dubai, where everything is very confected and manufactured and sterile, and is great for Instagram pics, but probably not for cultural sort of...
Adventures,
exactly.
But how interesting as well, she said, when you looked at the coffee shop, it looked great, and then you zoomed out. Isn't that life? When you look at just that thing, and it looks great, and then you zoom out and you see the rest of the world. I went to Bali, I think, 25 years ago.
Did you? Yeah, I think I went travelling there. I'm trying to think when that was, about 30 years ago.
It's amazing, but it's like a trip of a lifetime. She should be so grateful to be there. And also, 48 hours, you've barely sort of unpacked your suitcase.
Just give it somewhere else. If you don't like where you are, just
But by the way, she was in a top luxury hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people would look at this and give their eye teeth.
So I think this is the Instagram versus reality. There's not quite as salubrious as you think. That's the beautiful beach and the amazing surroundings and the thousands of tourists still waiting for their moment.
To be fair, that's not that busy if you compare it to British and street.
But that's similar if you go to Europe, you go anywhere to those moments that have got beautiful, iconic pictures. You're usually queuing to get to that.
Also, don't influencers get free holidays for hashtags? So I wouldn't, you know, don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
And it's as old as time began. You look at the holiday brochure, you think, oh, that looks amazing. Oh, I can't wait to get there. And then you turn up and it's not quite as you had anticipated. But that's why you need a bit of dose of realism.
Yeah, I would never book a holiday based on social media, I don't think.
No, of course not.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Also, like, holidays in other holidaymakers' shop. You know, if you go to Durdle Door, it will be quite busy with people with backpacks on and trainers. What, I mean, who do these people think they are?
But if this is the first time she's realised that Instagram isn't really the real world, then I think she's got quite a lot of learning to do.
I know, but she's living in the Instagram non-real world. I mean, nothing is real about Instagram. You look at people's home, you know, these people who put up these homes and you're like, where are all of your possessions? Where are the children's school bags dumped at the door?
And the
shoes?
art and the shoes. And
cat socks.
Yes.
Unbelievably.
Oh, we've got...
Why are there just pairs of socks in any average home?
At least
they
you've
don't
got
appear on the
pairs.
photos.
I've just got singles
nice.
everywhere. One of
Covered
those.
in mud because they won't put shoes on outside?
Correct.
We're deviating from the theme here.
Well, we're kind of deviating, but we're also kind of on the right track as well, because we're talking about houses and we're talking about housework. Would you invoice your significant other for the housework? That is exactly what one woman did after she grew tired of picking up all the slack at home.
I think my husband would be bankrupted if I invoiced. In fact, if I invoiced for housework, I wouldn't have to do this.
No.
I mean, you know, I could just be
We'd be in
paid.
Bali together, wouldn't we?
Yes.
We would.
And we wouldn't be complaining.
No, we wouldn't. We're having a great time.
Have you ever considered such a thing, Alison?
Well, no, because I think it would be fairly short shrift. But I would like to invoice for all the housework, but I would also like to put in another bill as well for all the thinking. You know, the thinking that you have to do.
Yeah,
like what are we going to eat a week on Thursday? Or have I got your mum's birthday present?
Yeah, exactly.
Or have I all of that stuff?
Are the passports renewed?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness, school shoes. Should I buy them in July or
mean-
Yes,
August?
kids club. Which ones are on tonight?
Does that mean that your partners can invoice for patience and just allowing you to
I
feel
think
like
I'd
the boss?
I'd get a rebate on
Is
that.
that how it
Just say
works?
how bold you are.
With three of us
Three
around
women
the
here.
table.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know.
You know, get up, Ben's routine. Get up, brush teeth,
Go to the gym.
look dishy,
Yeah. Do
bit of gel in the hair, leave house.
Harder than you think.
Mrs. Ben's routine. Forward thinking, 500 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Make sure the gel's ready to go for Ben's hair.
Yeah, has Ben got the right hair gel and top?
I think we should move on. Let's talk bank holidays. The French Prime Minister, François Bayrou, has decided that he's going to solve the debt crisis in France by cancelling bank holidays.
Sacre bleu.
They have a few more than us, I think, Alison, is that right?
They have 11 and we have 8. But I think his point was that May, June time is like Swiss cheese, full of holes, because they have Easter, then they have May, and then they have another one in May as well. So they do have a lot all together, and that affects productivity, so it affects the income coming to the country, and they could
Independence in
save...
July as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so they could save a lot of money, is the theory. But, of course, the people don't like the idea of losing their bank holidays, as we wouldn't.
Isn't there a bigger problem for France's productivity? You know, constant strikes and people retiring at 55. I mean, I don't think 3 more bank holidays than us. It's going to make much difference.
I am intrigued by
is it?
the economics of it. Sorry, Cam.
go on,
The economics of it. They've got to try and save 43.6 billion euros in next year's budget. The country is facing 3.3 trillion euro worth of debt. How much money does a bank holiday cost? The economy, a country.
It is because we wouldn't imagine it, but it is millions and millions of pounds. Because when we had the coronation, although that was there was extra spending around bunting and whatnot and all that sort of stuff, there was actually an impact on the economy, quite significant impact at that point, because everything closes down, the banks close down.
Also, how many splashes did you preside over, or stories did I write? We need an extra bank holiday for this.
Yes, there was, wasn't there?
The
People's Bank Holiday.
Should we have a bank holiday? It's
So
like the
financially,
perennial.
they are quite detrimental to the economy.
Yes, they are. But we still need, I think, one sort of round about October time. There's a bit of a...
You'd like an extra
Because
one?
you get to
Your
August
birthday
bank... No. You get to August bank holiday and then you have to wait all the way and then till Christmas, don't you?
Yeah, actually, we're front-loaded with bank holidays in this country. We need a few more in autumn.
How about if we said no more 3-hour lunches in France? We'll bring it down to an hour.
You are not making yourself popular. Do not go to Cannes anytime soon.
But aren't they just having a better quality of life as a result of
think
their
so.
nice lunches and their bank holidays? And
Running up a massive
they're
amount of
just-
debt,
yeah.
though.
So are we. We're also in a colossal
What did Ronald
debt.
Reagan once say? Oh, the deficit's big enough to look after itself.
That's how I like to think of things as well. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.